Hey everyone, welcome to our QuickStart webinar. We're going to get started. Today's webinar is going to be different than what we've had in the past. Mainly, we are going to take the most of the time to just answer any questions that you have regarding a specific process or in general use cases for your business. Before we dive into that, I do want to cover couple of items just with our setup, virtual terminal, and payment schedule. Those seem to be the three main questions coming in with support cases and important pieces regarding our payments app. Then after that, I'll go through a couple use cases, common use cases that I think will benefit everyone and hopefully spark an idea that can better your own use case or your processes. Then again, we're just going to open up the floor to question and answer. While I'm talking, I have Chris on the phone as well, who can answer questions as we're going along through this, in addition to talking at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. With setup, there are two main pieces with the payments app, and that is our setup wizard and configuring webhooks. I'm assuming most of you on the call have made it through the setup wizard, but let's just go through and I'll touch on a couple of key points that for you guys. So to begin with, connecting to Stripe, whether you are in production or in Sandbox, we highly suggest connecting to your Stripe account in test mode. Again, once you're done with the setup wizard, you can just hop right into testing payments, transactions, etc., before going live with your live account. So as we navigate through, configuration's pretty simple and nothing that you have to do on your end except for clicking grant access. But this deploys the objects, the record types, page layouts, some configuration pieces, scheduled jobs, things like that. Again, you have to grant access to move through the setup wizard. Record type, if you plan on using ACH, depending on your business model, you'll determine that on this step. Again, what it does is it deploys that ACH record type with the page layout and related fields. As we move, permission sets, so a little bit about this. Maybe right off the bat, you don't know how your other users are going to be using the payments app or what they should have access to or not. Most of the time, I would say click no on this step, just because if you do say yes, all of your users within your org will have the system admin permission and are granted access the same that you as a system admin are. So you can move on and update this later. If you do have a good understanding of what profiles should have access to the payments app, we do have a advanced control. So you can select which profile should have which permission set. But again, it's everything that we deploy, right? So if you need to customize a certain permission set, you would need to clone one that we have and edit that, which is why we mostly say do it later. So we'll click make magic happen and move on to the next step. The relation step is also important. So kind of like what the message says here, with payment method, this is relating your charges, your cards, excuse me, or your ACH accounts. By default, we link the account and contact object with payment method. I would say 90% of our customers use one of those two objects for creating payment methods. We do have customers, though, that have custom objects. Leads is another popular object that is used. And so that's where you would define this. Again, you just have to select the object and then hit create. And then it will populate in there. All it's doing is deploying fields to relate the two objects together. Same with transaction, right? So again, main use case opportunity is a very popular object that we want to relate transactions to. But again, it can go out and expand to a custom object or orders, invoice, anything like that. So you'll determine that there as well and continue. So I do have Paylink configured for this org. And as we go through some of the use cases, I'll touch on how Paylink can get configured within your business process with our app. Cool. So that very straightforward for going through the setup. From here, configuring webhooks. If you guys have not configured this yet, please follow along with me right now on getting this set up. It's super important. There are updates that come from Stripe that update records in Salesforce when this is enabled, which you definitely want to use to keep your payment methods relevant, transactions up to date. Like for example, with disputes, that comes all in through Stripe. So please follow along. If I'm going too fast, just put a little message within the chat window to slow down. If you have a certain question on one of the steps, go ahead and ask that, and I'll open up my QA and make sure that I'm following along with that as well. So the first step is setting up a site. So we're going to come to Setup. And in the quick find, go ahead and type in sites. And if you haven't configured a site domain yet, go ahead and do that now. Easy thing to do is your organization name. Obviously, for this example, I've already configured it, naming it Pay Webinar. So go ahead and do that. And then from there, you're going to be creating a new site. So click the New button. And there's a couple pieces that we need to enter in here to configure our site. So label, name, pretty straightforward. You can name it whatever you would like. Your site contact will populate automatically with your user. And then within the default web address, go ahead and type in the word checkout, no spaces, with mark it as active. And then on the active site homepage, type in maintenance. This is just what your website or the site's going to look like. So if I hit preview, just showing that it's down for maintenance. Again, the site is really just used as a point of contact for those webhooks from Stripe, which we'll get into here shortly. Everything else is pre-filled. You don't have to select anything else and hit save. So next step is the permissions with this site and the public access settings. So click public access settings and then edit. And we are going to be editing the permissions on 2 custom objects. So you'll just scroll down, and on custom object permissions, please make sure that your payment gateway is read access and your webhook events are read and create. Okay, perfect. And then hit save. Next, we have a few fields that we need to grant access to. So navigate down to the field level security, and we're going to open up payment gateway and webhook event. Give it a second here to load. Awesome. So there are 4 fields that definitely need to be checked, otherwise the webhook event will not work. And that is default currency, Stripe account country, and we're giving read access for these, not edit access, Stripe publishable key, and webhook label. Once you have those checked, hit save. Then we're going to come over to our webhook event fields. And for this, pretty simple, every field needs to be read level access. So go ahead now and mark those. And once you're done, hit save. What we'll do next is we'll go back to the profile, and then we have to enable an Apex class. So please scroll down all the way to the bottom, and where it says enabled Apex class access, obviously I have mine enabled already, but click edit, and then let's go back here. You'll hit edit, and then it's from the available Apex. It's that REST webhook 2 that you'll want to bring over. Once you add that, hit save. And that's it for the Salesforce side. Again, if you guys can navigate to your Stripe account, please do so now. And I'm getting there as well. I'm going to paste a link for you guys, so this is super easy to follow along with. I should be able to share it, yeah. So there is a chat message that's coming with an example link. Please take that link and navigate to your developer tab, make sure that you're in your view test data window, click on webhooks, and when you add an endpoint, paste that link that I just sent you into there. Obviously, we're not going to save it and add it as an endpoint. This wouldn't work for your org, as the name of your site is not Test Blackthorn. But that's the only piece that we have to change. So go ahead and delete it. Navigate back to your site. Click on your site URL, and then just copy the name of that site. This is the easiest way to do it. Go back to Stripe and then paste it in there. Just a tidbit, every once in a while, most orgs you'll need the .secure.force. There has been times with like a developer org, or depending on the version of org you have, that .secure is not needed. So trial and error, we'll add the endpoint. I'm going to hit cancel because I've already added it into my Stripe account. So we'll go ahead and click send test webhook. Super important to verify that everything's working. Otherwise, you're not going to have things updating in Salesforce. So I'm going to come down to customer created. That's the easiest webhook to test with. And as you'll see, if everything's great, it was sent successfully. We even have a Salesforce ID down here. And if you really want to just verify that everything looks right, you can copy that ID, come back into Salesforce, and then paste it after the .com. And we're good. So webhook event record was created in Salesforce with that test data. All right, and we're all set. So that's, like I said, that's the two main pieces for setting up the payments app. From here, it's really just testing. Before you even start trying to configure or figure out how the payments app can work for your use cases, I would test our main objects, and that's payment method, making sure you understand how a payment method is created, validated, create a transaction, charge that transaction, refund, do everything you can with it just so that you understand how that process works. So I'm just going to take the time. I won't spend too much time on this, but like I said, create a new payment method. We do offer, if I come over to our documentation, we do have a full page just with testing data. So you can test card numbers, bank account. We even have for specific responses, right? So if you want to test failing a payment method because of the CVC code, or you want to test a failed transaction, all of those we offer. We do have other features that you can test with, like disputes, and then cleaning up your test data from both Stripe and Salesforce. If you've installed this into production, we have instructions for that. So moving on, let's go ahead and jump into, so that's payment method. Let me just show you a webhook event record. That's another item, I think, just so you understand the relationship with Stripe and when information does get updated in Stripe, where it's coming to in Salesforce before going to a transaction or a payment method. This is just an example. So if I'm going back to Stripe and say I have a customer here. All right, so this was actually created in Salesforce, but we do have events like details were updated. And this event is shown, once it loads, here in event data. Okay, so it's just a JSON file with parameters and then values within those parameters. And when I come back to the event the webhook event, you're seeing that data in this field. So what happens is that there's a scheduled process that runs every 5 minutes that will process these webhooks and then disperse them to the related records. So for example, this one was with a payment method, so it wouldn't be related to a transaction, but it would show that related payment method record on there. But yeah, just a nice way in terms of if you ever need to troubleshoot or figure out maybe why something wasn't updated in Salesforce, coming back to the webhook and then relating that with the Stripe account record, super easy to navigate through and troubleshoot and figure out what went wrong at what point in time. Good transparency there. So that's, again, set up and kind of going through some test data. Let's go into the virtual terminal. So many ways to use our virtual terminal. It's both classic and Lightning. Obviously, I'm showing everything in Lightning today. This can be used in a customer community as well. We do have that Lightning component enabled. I'm just going to go to an opportunity. That's what I have for my transaction parent. And just give you an idea of what everything looks like. So come here, I have an opportunity with product and an amount. And as you can see, this virtual terminal is nicely pre-filled with my related to, amount, and currency. It just didn't happen on its own. We have a feature within metadata types. Let me just get to that so I can show you, where you can define fields and pre-populate values. So you're going to come to custom metadata types, manage records next to the virtual terminal mapping. And obviously you can see the 3 fields that I have pre-populated. So I'm just going to come to one of them. Very straightforward. All you need to do is determine where the value is coming from and what it's going to. With the virtual terminal, it's always going to be going to the transaction. So again, we have the opportunity amount going to the transaction amount. All right, and so that's the exact same for contact and currency. You do want to make sure that the fields are matching in type from the source object to the target object. So going back here, right, so we have the opportunity, everything's pre-filled. With payment method, you can either add a new payment method right from here. So you're on the call with someone, taking their information, you can add one pretty easily there. Hit save, it creates a payment method in the background and then automatically adds it to the transaction. Right now, I'm just going to use one that I've already created, and then I'm going to hit process. And we'll go ahead and look at the transaction. Now I have a process builder that I created where when a transaction has completed, the related opportunity will update to closed one, right? So you've finished the sale, everything looks great. As you can see, the transaction has completed. I'm going to go back to the opportunity and we'll see that it's now set to closed one. From there, if you have any other business processes like, notify the internal sales team that this has been closed one, you really can work off of our app's objects to update others and yeah, move forward with that. So pretty easy with virtual terminal. The other item, let's see. So again, with customer communities, I think we've disclosed, if we haven't, we are not experts at communities. We do have this Lightning component available, but I'm not going to show today how this works. We have many customers that are using the virtual terminal in a customer community, and so if you have any specific questions about that, please ask at the end, and we will do our best. And then, like I said, if we can't answer right away, we'll definitely follow up with you or get you into contact with somebody that can help out with communities. So let's see. Virtual terminal also honors the field level security. So what I'm going to do is I have a user that shouldn't have access to the related to, right? You may have somebody that needs to log in, pay for an opportunity, but they should never change the primary contact, because if that happens, then right, they can see other payment method, they could create a payment method related to another contact, and that just gets super messy. So what I did is I created a permission set. Really what I did is I cloned one of our existing permission sets. Let me just get to it here. So it, again, just depends on what access you want to give this user. So I cloned the Blackthorn Payments admin permission set, just calling it test. And what I did, super easy, is went to the object settings and under transactions. Again, it's all about the target object where you want to change that security. And what I did with the contact is made it read only. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as this user, Sally Sue. And I'm going to log in as Sally Sue again. Okay, perfect. So now I'm logged in as this user. I'm gonna go to an opportunity. I believe I created a stand-up opportunity with product and no transactions. Awesome. So this perfect example, exact same thing that I saw as a system admin, only difference is I cannot change this related to, which is super great because like I said, if you don't want them changing it, you want them only adding a new payment method for their information or only being able to see their existing payment methods. Great way around this. Again, you add a payment method, description if you want to, everything else pre-populates, and you can go ahead and click process and it works out just perfectly. So a lot of features, a lot of things that you can do with the virtual terminal. Let me hop back in here as the system admin and then go through payment schedules with you guys. Oops. Try that again. All right, so payment schedules. A common use case with payment schedules is if you have a recurring payment. A lot of people relate these to an opportunity, and then if that product is recurring and you need it paid over a certain amount of time, as common monthly for the year, that's perfect with the payment schedule. Now you can automate payment schedules, right? So if you have an opportunity where once it's closed won, and say you have a custom field that says this is a recurring opportunity, and maybe you have the frequency of monthly or whatever information you have on the opportunity, that can be brought over to the payment schedule. So you can say once the opportunity is closed won, create a payment schedule for whatever these fields are referencing, and then generate. And what it'll do, let me go through this, is just get to payment schedule. So we'll just create a new payment schedule. Easy preset monthly. Say we have the start date. Again, you can match this on the close date of the opportunity. Don't need to add in an end date. It'll calculate it automatically. Monthly, we're going to do one each month for the year. And say each amount was the value of the opportunity divided by 12. So we'll just put in an even number here of 100. And then we're going to change the schedule status to generate. So this is going to generate all of the related transactions, the future looking transactions that will automatically be captured. So we're going to set this to auto process. And then of course, if you are on the phone, or you have an existing payment method, you can add that information right away into the related to. So we're not going to do that this time. We're going to just hit save. So as you can see, we got the initial amount each, the total amount 12, and then let me come on over to the related and view all, so you guys can see each payment schedule is created for the next year with the due dates respectively. And then one thing we're missing here is the payment method. So of course, if we get to the end of today and this transaction tries to capture, which it will try automatically, it'll fail just because there's nothing related to it for capturing payment. So there's a couple ways. Again, if you have it over the phone, you can add the payment method automatically. Paylink comes in for a great example on this. Couple options for sending the Paylink to the customer. There's this awesome activity email where you can send it directly to the customer if you're just doing a one-off. Or obviously you have a process builder that automatically sends the Paylink to the customer. So they'll open it and we'll hit pay. Nice email. Just put in a test card number. and we'll go ahead and pay for the $100. I'll let that process. Perfect. So we're going to come back here. We're going to refresh our transaction. Something to note with the payment schedule feature is that when you add a payment schedule or a payment method, excuse me, to one of the transactions, so I'll click here and go back to the payment schedule. Let's see. That's why I've added it there. We'll go back to the payment schedule. And remember, we just sent out the first transaction that should be captured, which was correct. But now the payment method was added to the payment schedule and then rolled down to all the related transactions. So it's truly a set it and forget it mentality, just because you now have a valid payment method for all the future transactions. They will capture based on the due date. If there's any issues with the payment method, what will happen is that the transaction will fail, but we have reattempt logic. So not to get too far into that, but I do want to make a note of it, is that we have reattempt logic automatically enabled for everybody that installs the payments app. You know, maybe just that day the person hit their card limit or something just happened, a temporary hold, right, which failed the payment. So we automatically, settings. So we automatically reattempt that transaction the next day. And then obviously if it processes, there's no more reattempt. So I'm going to click here next to manage. And this is what the default setting is. We'll attempt it 4 times, and then after the 4th time, it's not attempted anymore. This is the perfect part where you can automate a process to say, look, after the 2nd attempt or 3rd attempt, just depending on your business, we need to email the customer and say, what's going on? Do we need to change the payment method, or how are you going to handle this, right? We do have some customers that after the 3rd attempt, they have an automated process that will send out a pay link for that transaction, which will, one, get a new payment method and capture the transaction that's overdue. Super simple, easy to use. You can really configure it to how you need to. But yeah, so that's payment schedule, and having it roll up. So right, if that transaction's been updated with a new payment method, all open transactions in the future that had the old one that's not working, it'll be updated to the new one as well. Just giving you more of a peace of mind and not having to worry about every single aspect of a payment schedule, and just focusing on working with your customer and capturing these transactions. So what else can I show you guys? With our opportunity, we also have, like I said, kind of going on that pay link conversation. We have a send pay link automation, and this use case is in our documentation, but I do want to show you, it's pretty powerful. So let me get actually to an opportunity that's not closed one here. Okay, here we go. I can create a new one as well. Okay, perfect. So you have an opportunity. We don't have an amount yet, so let's go ahead and add some product. Pay link. Save. So I'm going to go back to the opportunity. Again, if you were doing this over a call, you could easily just type it into the virtual terminal. But this time, you're working on an opportunity for a customer, and you just want to send them, you know, they said, yep, this sounds great. Send me a pay link or the payment. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this stage. Again, you can have any criteria that you want to closed one. And I have a few process builders that I've created, and I'll just briefly go over them. That once an opportunity is set to closed one, I have a transaction created related to the opportunity set as an open status, and then I have it rolling the pay link URL up to the opportunity, and then that fires a workflow to send an email to the customer. So literally you're just clicking closed one on the opportunity, and then all of this just happens. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you that process builder. All right, so the first one we have is creating a transaction from the opportunity. Based on your criteria, you'll start with the opportunity object. You always start with your transaction parent. So fill in the blank if your use case is not an opportunity. And then you have your criteria. So again, closed one. And then what your immediate action is what values from the opportunity are you placing onto the transaction? So again, I have all of these. You definitely need currency, amount, if you want to save the transaction successfully. So those two are definitely needed. And then you obviously want to relate the opportunity and then any other information you can add. The more information, the better. But again, it's just based on your use case. And then that's it. And then from there, once that happens, I'm updating the opportunity with a pay link URL. So I created a custom field onto the opportunity just so I can have all the fields together when I'm sending out an email with the merged fields. So again, it's coming from the transaction just when it's created. It doesn't need to be when it's edited. And then you're going to update the opportunity. Very straightforward process builder there. So let's go back to our pay link. And I did have it set up to my email. So let me just check here. Perfect. And so as we were talking, I did get an email, and it's not pretty, so please disregard that, but it's pretty straightforward, right? So thanks for ordering with us. Please click this link to submit payment. And so that brings us to the pay link, which I'll bring over here. With our pay link, you can configure this to your business. So I don't have a logo, but a logo could be shown here. The background color can also change based on whatever color that you want for your company. So just going to click pay again to go through this. Great email again. Okay. And like I said, this is our most common use case of PayLink, and something I definitely highly suggest if you aren't using it now. Just is so much easier in terms of collecting payment from your customers. They can print their invoice or their receipt and save it for their records. And then obviously when we come back here, which will refresh our opportunity, you'll see now, obviously it was still at stage for closed one. You could always set it to something else after they pay if you want to know and be notified. We also have Blackthorn payment charge totals, so you can see when it churns from an open charge to a captured, and then relate it over into the transaction that's completed. So pretty nifty with the processes and what you can do with our app. That's it for at least the demonstration. I want to get back and open this up now to you guys. Before we start the Q&A, again, that was a lot of information. I hope I went into depth enough for you guys to realize, oh, maybe there's something different we can do with our process, or whatever the case may be. I hope this was helpful. If you do need additional assistance, or you want more of that one-on-one experience and need help with configuring or implementing a certain process for your business, we are going to be offering a QuickStart package, which is everything I just said, right? And by us spending a few hours with you guys, we can increase that user adoption, implement best practices, making your processes more efficient, and then personalized training for your users. So we can just get this app up and running for you guys and get it live as soon as possible. So if this is something of interest to you, please reach out to us after. You can contact us just right on Blackthorn on our contact page, just with sales, and let me know, and I'll get back to you. So thank you for your time. I'm just going to leave it open now to questions that you have, and if there's any questions, I'll definitely stay on. Maybe there's something that somebody brings up with a specific use case that you didn't think of, and it helps you out as well. So go ahead. And if you are going to be hopping off because you don't have any questions, I again appreciated your time. Oh, looks like we do have. All right. All right. Thanks, everyone.